Imagine going on a first date, hitting it off, and then bam, you wake up 2 months later, paralyzed, in a hospital bed. No memory of the date or the woman you went out with. That's what happened to Chris Smith.
Oh, wow.
Back in 2021, the night before Thanksgiving, he went on this first date with a woman named Reeves. By the end of that night, Leslie was dead, and Chris was fighting for his life. So today, we are diving deep into this crazy case. We'll be using a Postmortem episode from the 48 Hours podcast to guide us.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that one.
It takes listeners, like behind the scenes of the investigation and trial.
Sounds interesting.
It is. One of the things that's so interesting about this case is how quickly suspicion fell on Leslie's ex-boyfriend, Bobby Tarr. And what's even more, I guess, strange is that Bobby, he wasn't exactly trying to stay out of the spotlight.
What do you mean?
He was calling producers, texting them, even video chatting with them from jail.
Wow. That's pretty bold. You'd think someone facing, charges like that would want to lay low.
Right. Makes you think, what was he trying to do?
Yeah, I guess so.
So to really get this, we need to understand the relationship between Leslie and Bobby. And, well, there were some pretty serious red flags there.
Like what?
Well, like this $10,000 dispute. Leslie said Bobby owed her that money he used to buy, get this, a motorcycle.
Oh, yikes. Yeah, money problems can definitely cause trouble in a relationship.
For sure. And it just makes you wonder, was this part of a bigger pattern of, control and manipulation?
It's possible.
And that wasn't even the only red flag. There was this incident where Leslie thought Bobby was stalking her.
Really?
Yeah. She told her friends about being on another first date, and she was at, of all places, a church parking lot. And suddenly, Bobby appears.
Oh, that is creepy. It's one thing to worry about your safety, but to have it actually happen.
And then, about a month before the shooting, Leslie even texted a friend saying she was afraid Bobby might kill her if she didn't completely cut off contact.
Wow, that's scary.
It is. This wasn't just, paranoia. Leslie was a self-defense instructor. She knew what to look for.
True, she probably knew the warning signs better than most people.
And get this. There's even a story about how Leslie had to use her self-defense moves to get away from Bobby's house one time. Apparently, he tried to block her from leaving when she went there to get some of the money he owed her.
Oh my gosh. So there definitely seems to be a pattern of controlling behavior here.
Yeah, but we also have to remember that right now, we're just hearing Leslie's side. She's not here to tell her side of the story, sadly.
Right. That's why it's so important to look at all the evidence.
Absolutely. And speaking of the evidence, even though there wasn't any physical evidence linking Bobby to the crime scene at first, the investigators still decided to arrest him pretty quickly, on Thanksgiving evening, just hours after Leslie and Chris were found.
Wow, it's fast.
I know it was a bold move, but it ended up causing a challenge for the prosecution later on. They called it the bloody scene paradox.
Okay, what's that?
So the crime scene was covered in blood.
Right, makes sense.
But there was no blood on Bobby or in his car. So the question became, how could he have done something so violent and still stay clean?
Good question.
The prosecution came up with a theory. They said that Chris, who somehow survived being shot in the head, was actually shot first.
Okay.
And then Leslie was shot in a different room.
I see.
And then their theory was that Chris wandered around the kitchen for hours before anyone found them, bleeding the whole time.
Oh, wow, that would explain all the blood.
Exactly. But of course, the defense had something to say about that.
Of course.
They pointed out that there were other blood stains at the scene that hadn't been thoroughly tested.
That does sound like something worth looking into.
Definitely. And this is where the whole investigation takes this crazy turn.
What happened?
Remember how Bobby was so, eager to talk to everyone?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out all that talking might have been what brought him down.
How so?
The more he talked, the more inconsistencies popped up in his story.
Oh, that's not good.
Nope. Phone records and license plate readers started to contradict his alibi about where he was that night.
Technology really can be a game changer in these investigations.
It really can. And it's hard to keep up a fake alibi when your digital trail is telling a different story.
Yeah, no kidding.
But the biggest blow to Bobby's defense came from his own daughter, Shelby.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that must have been hard for her.
I can't even imagine. She ended up contradicting her dad's alibi, telling investigators that he had left the house several times that night.
Oh my gosh. That's a tough position to be in.
It really is. And to make things even more complicated, right before Shelby was going to testify, Bobby sent her a text message.
Interesting.
It makes you think, right? Was he just being a supportive dad during a difficult time? Or was there something more to it? Was he trying to influence her testimony?
That's a good question. It's one the jury had to consider, too.
The prosecution definitely thought it was an attempt to sway her. But without knowing what the text actually said, it's hard to say for sure what Bobby's intentions were.
Definitely adds another layer to this whole thing.
It does. But, even with all the mysteries surrounding the text message, there was just too much evidence against Bobby.
I can see that.
His daughter's testimony, all the lies about where he was that night,
Yeah.
was tough to argue with.
So what happened next?
Well, remember, Shelby wasn't the only one who contradicted Bobby's story. Investigators used phone records, license plate reader data, witness statements.
It's like putting a puzzle together, huh?
It really is.
They just kept finding more and more pieces that didn't fit with Bobby's version of events.
It's like he underestimated how much technology can track our every move these days.
It's not like the old days.
Exactly.
Really?
But now, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about Chris, the other victim in all of this.
Oh, right. The one who survived.
Yes, incredibly, he survived being shot in the head, just like Leslie.
It's a miracle he's alive.
He really is. It speaks to how resilient the human body can be, and also to how far medical science has come.
That's true.
But his recovery was anything but easy.
I'm-
He dealt with paralysis, multiple surgeries, even strokes. He had to relearn how to walk and talk.
It's unimaginable.
It's hard to even comprehend the strength it must have taken to overcome all of that.
It really is.
And it wasn't just the physical stuff he had to deal with. While he was in the hospital fighting for his life, his house was ransacked. His belongings were stolen.
Oh, no.
Even his dog, Tiki, was gone. And Tiki might have actually saved Chris's life by keeping him warm in those hours after the shooting.
Oh, my gosh. That's so awful.
It is. It just goes to show that the effects of these crimes go way beyond the physical injuries. It's the emotional trauma, the loss, the feeling of violation.
Yeah.
But even after all that, Chris made the decision to rebuild his life.
Good for him.
He went back to playing music in his rock band. And he even talked about wanting to become a motivational speaker.
That's inspiring.
It really is. It shows a level of inner strength that's just incredible. He's turning tragedy into something positive.
Yeah, it's a powerful message.
And at Bobby's sentencing, Chris actually gave an impact statement. It was so powerful, it really captured everything he went through and the strength he found within himself. I think it's important for us to hear his words directly, so let's listen.
Okay.
Chris's words are just so powerful. Hearing him speak after everything he's been through, it just shows you that even in the darkest times, there's always hope.
It really does. And it's a good reminder that we have a choice in how we respond to trauma and adversity.
Right. Chris chose to focus on healing and growth, and it's a testament to the power of that choice.
It is. But while Chris was choosing hope, Bobby, interestingly enough, he chose silence during his trial.
He didn't testify.
Nope. It's a common legal strategy. But it's definitely a gamble.
How so?
Well, on the one hand, it keeps the prosecution from being able to directly question the defendant, like grill them on the stand.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can make the jury wonder why the defendant isn't speaking up for themselves.
I guess that makes sense. So Bobby stayed quiet during the trial, but he did have something to say at his sentencing.
Ah. Okay, so that was his last chance, to try and convince the judge before the sentence was handed down.
Right. And he definitely took that chance.
He did.
Oh, yeah. He spoke for almost half an hour, laying out his side of things, trying to explain away the evidence, saying he was innocent.
It's interesting how even when someone's found guilty, they can still hold on to their own version of events.
Absolutely. It was like he built up this whole story in his mind.
Yeah.
And he was desperate for the judge to believe it.
It sounds like he had an answer for everything.
He did. He seemed so composed, even when they presented evidence that directly contradicted what he was saying.
That's pretty remarkable.
It is. And what's even crazier is that Bobby wasn't some mastermind criminal.
What do you mean?
He was just a regular guy, somebody you wouldn't look at and think they were capable of something like this.
That's what's so scary about these kinds of cases. They challenge our ideas about who can commit these horrible acts.
It's true. It makes you realize that people aren't just good or bad. There's so much gray area.
Absolutely. We all have the potential for both darkness and light.
And sometimes life just pushes people in one direction or the other.
Sadly, that's true.
But in the end, Bobby's attempts to convince the judge didn't work. The evidence was just too strong.
So what happened?
He was sentenced to 85 years in prison.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is. It shows how seriously the court took these crimes and how much they impacted Leslie, Chris, and their families.
Yeah, there's no sentence that can truly erase the pain and loss they went through.
That's for sure. And it's important to remember that the impact of something like this goes way beyond the people directly involved. It affects families, friends, entire communities.
It creates this ripple effect of trauma,
Exactly. And that trauma can linger for a long time.
the fear, the grief, the sense of vulnerability.
It's why these cases are so important to talk about. They force us to face some uncomfortable truths about the world. And they remind us that darkness can exist anywhere, even in the most unexpected places.
I agree. They also highlight the importance of empathy and compassion. We need to support the victims, hold the perpetrators accountable, and work to prevent these things from happening in the first place.
It all comes down to building a safer and more compassionate world.
That's a great way to put it.
And listening to Chris's story, seeing his determination to rebuild his life. It's hard not to be amazed by the strength of the human spirit.
It really is remarkable. He faced incredible odds, endured so much pain, and yet he never gave up hope for a better future.
It's a reminder that even when things are at their worst, we still have a choice.
A choice in how we react, a choice in how we move forward.
And Chris chose to fight, to adapt, to find a way.
He's a true inspiration.
He is. His story is a testament to the resilience that we all have inside of us. It also, it makes you appreciate those little things in life, like the relationships we have, the everyday moments.
Yeah,
We never know when those things might be taken away.
it's true. It also makes you think, what if things had been different? What if Leslie and Chris had never gone on that date?
It's hard to say. But I think it's more helpful to focus on what we can learn from this and how we can apply it to our own lives.
I agree. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is the importance of recognizing red flags in relationships and protecting ourselves.
Right. Leslie was strong, independent, a self-defense instructor. And she still ended up in this dangerous situation.
It's a reminder that anyone can be vulnerable to abuse, no matter who they are.
Absolutely.
And it's important to remember there is help out there. There are resources for people who are experiencing domestic violence or feeling unsafe.
You hear it all the time from survivors. They wish they had spoken up sooner, that they ignored the warning signs.
It's so easy to downplay things.
It is.
But it's crucial to trust our instincts. If something feels wrong, if you feel threatened or unsafe, reach out for help.
Your safety and well-being come first.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to go through this alone.
Right. And if we see someone else who might be in a dangerous situation, it's our responsibility to speak up too. Offer support.
Absolutely. Sometimes just knowing someone cares can make all the difference.
It can. It's about building a culture where we don't tolerate abuse of any kind.
Well said.
This case is truly a tragedy, but it also shines a light on resilience, the strength of the human spirit, and how important it is to be aware and supportive in our communities.
It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there's still hope. And there's always the potential for healing and growth.
And that's why it's so important to share stories like this. They make us face hard truths, learn from the past, and work towards a safer, more compassionate world. If you want to dive deeper into this case, you should definitely check out the full Postmortem episode of 48 Hours. They go into more detail about the investigation, the evidence, the trial. It's really fascinating.
And I thought it was really powerful when Chris said during the 48 Hours episode, never give up.
Wow.
It's such a simple statement, but it really sums up his whole journey.
It does. He faced unimaginable challenges, went through so much pain, but he never lost sight of the possibility of a better future.
It's amazing.
It's a reminder that even when life throws its worst at us, we still have a choice.
We can choose to let the darkness win, or we can choose to fight, to adapt, to find a way forward.
And Chris chose to fight. His story is a testament to the resilience that's inside all of us.
It really is.
So as you go about your day today, remember Chris's words. Never give up. Hold on to hope. Embrace those moments of joy, and never underestimate the strength that you have within you.
That's a great message to end on.
I think so too.
Oh,